Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of my favorite off-season conversations, and that is predicting the breakout players heading into 2025. And it's a really fun conversation to get into for Texas A&M, largely for two different reasons. Number one, this team is very talented, and you're going into year two of the Mike Elko era. And so you have a lot of really talented football players that are now playing more comfortable and more familiar in the scheme that they're in. You normally see players play better going into year two of a system. And I think, secondly, Mike Elko is one of those head coaches that we like to talk about. He's a guy that bets on traits. And he's a guy that says, hey, give me the premier athletes. We'll make them really good football players. And as a result, you look top to bottom of this Texas A&M roster heading into 2025, there's a lot of football players that have some serious traits heading into 2025. Now, what players put it together and really break out in 2025, that's what we're going to be talking about. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, I want to the Texas A&M fans, let it fly in the comment section. This is all of our opportunities, for lack of better terms, to kind of put our flagpole in the ground and kind of call our shot for some of these players heading into 2025. Let it fly. A lot of the players that y'all put in the comment section, those are the players that we're going to be talking about in spring practice and fall camp. Would love to hear from you guys. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into my number one player, and that is Terry Bussey. He's being slept on, in my opinion. Maybe not the Texas A&M fans, but in terms of national media recognition, Terry Bussey is a guy that's not getting talked enough about that I think could be a dude for Texas A&M in 2025, most notably because Texas A&M is looking for difference makers on the outside to take that step. Now, you brought some really good transfer portal additions in. Terry Bussey has every ability in the world to be a legitimate difference maker for Texas A&M. And I think it starts with, look, it's not going to jump off the paper to you. 17 catches on 23 targets, over 200 yards, over 115 yards after the catch. It was a solid freshman year from Terry Bussey. This was a kid that never really played any wide receiver. If you follow the recruiting trail, you knew about Terry Bussey. He played quarterback, played a little defensive back. I think a lot of people thought he was going to play defensive back when he got to college. Brand new to the position, and was a guy that it seemed like the staff just couldn't keep off the football field. And as you got into the month of November, you started seeing Terry Bussey on the football field more. You saw Coach Colin Klein really make an effort to involve Terry Bussey in this offense. He is a difference maker with the football in his hands, and going into year two, having a little bit better of a feel for that wide receiver position, ideally getting some development, kind of expanding that route tree in terms of what he can do as a route runner. You're going to see him more involved in this Texas A&M offense, and I think that's massive for Texas A&M going into 2025. Again, I mean, brand new to the position, comes into the SEC, and it produces as a freshman. That's a very good start to Terry Bussey's career. Number two, going to go to the defensive line. This is arguably, at least the way I look at Texas A&M right now, the biggest position to have some of these guys break out. Whether it's DJ Hicks, who I think certainly could, whether it's a guy like Dalen Evans, who I'm a massive fan of, and that's who we're going to talk about. If there's one massive concern from a personnel standpoint that I have for Texas A&M, hey, are we good enough and are we deep enough on the inside of the defensive line? Dalen Evans would go a long ways in kind of answering some of those questions. When you look at Dalen Evans, I mean, coming out of high school, you knew he wasn't going to be an immediate impact guy because he came in as a little bit of an undersized interior defensive lineman, spent a lot of time out there on the edge at high school. You knew that first year was like, hey, we got to get your body right. We got to get you big enough and physical enough to play along the lines of scrimmage in the SEC. Well, that has taken place. He's 6'5", up to 285, probably gets up to 300 pounds as this 2025 season rolls around. 79-inch wing, basketball player, also some big-time numbers in the throwing department in the track and field. Really, really talented. Really good first step. Has a ton of length. If he puts it together from a physicality standpoint, if he puts the weight on and can kind of hang from a physicality standpoint in the SEC, he's got all the athletic juice to be a difference maker on the inside of the defensive line. Now, a little bit different from a guy like maybe Albert Regis. I think Dalen Evans can be that, Shamar Turner to this Texas A&M defensive line, a guy that is long, juiced up on the inside of the defensive line, that some of these interior offensive linemen are just going to struggle with the athleticism and length that Dalen Evans has. To me, he might be the biggest story for Texas A&M going into spring ball. If you get the buzz around guys like DJ Hicks and guys like Dalen Evans, maybe even a guy like DJ Sanders coming in as a true freshman who's more ready to play than Dalen Evans was coming out of high school, it goes such a long ways in answering the biggest question mark you have for this Texas A&M football team in 2025. Next on the list, and I'm kind of cheating here, but I wanted to talk about him, that's Cashius Howell. Cashius Howell, low-key, as a pure pass rusher, Shamar Stewart, Nick Gordon, they got all the media attention, and rightfully so. They were very good. Cashius Howell was elite. I mean, 24 quarterback hurries, a 20% pass rush win rate, which was higher than Nick Gordon, which was higher than Shamar Stewart. He was elite in 2024, specifically rushing the passer. And that was with his first year in the SEC. What does it look like going into year 2 in the SEC? He's probably Texas A&M's best pass rusher right now going into 2025. Look, I put him as a breakout because I don't think a lot of people really recognize how good he was in 2024. This is first team all SEC caliber play from Cashius Howell that we could get in 2025, which is big because I think a lot of Texas A&M fans would probably agree with this. Wish we got a little bit more from the defensive line as a unit. I think individually, guys like Shamar Stewart and guys like Nick Gordon and guys like Shamar Turner, they played good individually, but as a unit, I didn't feel like they dominated football games the way I expected them to going into 2024. Can this be a unit that plays better together? I think Cashius Howell plays a really big part, especially rushing the passer off the edge. Number 4, took some growing pains in 2024. Well, when you're talking, let's just Dezz Ricks. Overall in the secondary, this is kind of a very similar conversation that we just had with the defensive line. I look at this unit and say that the talent's there. Now we just got to play together better as a unit, giving up way too many big plays in 2024. X factor here, Lyle Hemphill coming in from JMU. Not a lot of people talked about that. Development in the secondary between him and Mike Elko, that fires me up. You got so much talent in this room. Now I think you got some good coaches coming in to develop these guys. That excites me the most. You look at Dezz Ricks, I think the first thing you want to talk about was he was a reclassified guy. He should have been in the 2025 class, reclassified to 2024. So you look at that redshirt freshman year for Dezz Ricks in 2024, that should have been his true freshman year. From a talent standpoint, box checker. I mean, he's long, he's hyper athletic, long speed, 39-inch vert. Really wasn't bad as a redshirt freshman in 2024. Faced 58 targets, only gave up 32 catches, a 52% completion percentage when targeted, caught up in some penalties, gave up some big plays at time. Can you find a little bit more consistency from a guy like Dezz Ricks? But I look at the secondary. You're talking about Dezz Ricks, Will Lee, Julian Humphrey. Big, long athletes that can run like the best of them. You got boxes checked from an athletic profile standpoint in the secondary. Now we just got to get these players to play like the athletes they are. Can we do that going into year 2? Maybe the second biggest question mark you have for Texas A&M as a football program. But fire me up for Dezz Ricks, a guy that, again, he's young. He's still developing, but has all the elite traits of a legitimate first-round NFL draft pick. Last one on the list, and the Texas A&M fans who've been rocking with the fellas, y'all know where I was going. I didn't want to lead with Marcel Reed because I feel like we've talked a lot about him. There are so many reasons to believe that Marcel Reed takes a step in 2024. And I'm going to keep this one short because I know that some Texas A&M fans, you've probably been listening to me for a while, probably just shutting it off at this point because y'all heard me talk about it. Marcel Reed as a redshirt freshman last year was not bad. It was not perfect, but it certainly was not bad. Look at all and it's not even, you're talking about breakout players. Yeah, I think Marcel Reed gets better as a football player going into year 3 of his college football career. But to me, the reason I'm picking Marcel Reed to be a breakout candidate in the 2025 years, what's around him? You're going into 2025 as the guy. You're spending spring practice and fall camp as the quarterback 1. That matters from a development standpoint for Marcel Reed. Number two, this offense now is going to be built around you, Marcel Reed, not built around Connor Wigman. When Marcel Reed took over in 2024, this was an offense that in spring practice, fall camp, Colin Klein was building around Connor Wigman. Well, guess what? Marcel Reed and Connor Wigman, they're different kind of quarterbacks that have different skill sets. Now the whole offseason is going to be predicated around, hey, let's build an offense that Marcel Reed can be successful with. And then finally, got better pass catchers on the outside. And I've said it, I'll say it again. It kind of reminds me of Cade Klubnik going into 2024, where Cade wasn't great in 2023. He went year 2 in the OC with the OC, better wide receivers around him, another year of development. And we saw Cade Klubnik become one of the best college football quarterbacks in the country. Am I saying Marcel Reed's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the country? I don't know. I think he gets a lot better. And I give Mike Elko a ton of credit. A lot of other coaches would have been like, oh, let's go get, let me slow down. Let's go get a quarterback in the transfer portal. Mike Elko didn't take that route. He said, hey, let's look at Marcel Reed, who did a lot of good things as a redshirt freshman, and say, let's go build around him. And let's go put all the pieces around him for him to have a ton of success in 2025. That's what they did. Not to mention how dynamic of an athlete he is running the football. 17 missed tackles forced. That was more than Amari Daniels at the running back spot. He puts defenses in so much conflict with what he can do. Doesn't get enough talent for what he can do from an arm talent standpoint. Sign me up for Marcel Reed taking a massive step in 2025. We'll shut it down there. Let it fly in the comment section. A lot of names that you could go and talk about. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.